Good morning. It's our second day of the road trip of Scotland. We had absolutely beautiful and productive first day exploring this incredibly amazing historic city of Stirling. We didn't realize that Stirling will have so much to offer. We tried to cover as much as possible but still couldn't manage to see everything we wanted to see. So we had to pick up 5 places, in which we managed to visit few places yesterday, and the remaining couple of places are on our list for this morning, before heading off to our next destination, which is another historic city named after St. Andrews. I hope you guys will stay with me throughout the journey and also share your feedback in the comments. So let's go and explore. Cambuskenneth Abbey is an Augustinian monastery located on an area of land enclosed by a main door of a river Forth near Stirling in Scotland. The abbey today is largely reduced to its foundations. However, its bell tower remains. The neighboring modern village of Cambuskenneth is named after it. Cambuskenneth Abbey was founded by order of David I around the year 1140. It is daughter house of the French ROS order, the only one to exist in Scotland. The ROS also ran other abbeys and churches in land owned by David I in England. The ROS were a distinct order at the time of Abbey's construction to the Augustinians, but the two orders would later merge. Dedicated to the Virgin Mary, it was initially known as the Abbey of St. Mary of Stirling and sometimes simply as Stirling Abbey. In 1147, Pope Ion III declared the abbey had his protection through a papal bull, a status confirmed by both Pope Alexander III in 1164 and Pope Celestine III in 1195. The abbey became known as Cambuskenneth rather than Stirling from around 1207, as shown by papal bull of that time. Cambuskenneth was one of the more important abbeys in Scotland due in part to its proximity to the royal borough of Stirling, a leading urban centre of the country and sometime capital. Establishment of abbeys in Scotland, including Cambuskenneth under David I, provided a new influence in Scottish public life by providing source of literate individuals for the royal court and administrative duties. Its status as a royal abbey in the neighbourhood of a major national stronghold may be compared to the Holyrood Abbey, Edinburgh. In 1303, Edward I of England prayed and received an oath of loyalty from Robert Wishart, Bishop of Glasgow, at the abbey. In 1308, Niall Maximilian, Galbert de Lally, and other nobles swore allegiance to Robert the Bruce. The connection to Robert the Bruce continued, with the parliament being held at the abbey in 1314, 5 months after his victory at the Battle of Bannockburn. The spoil of the Battle of Bannockburn was shared out on the ground of this abbey. In 1326, another parliament was held where nobles and clergy swore an oath to the king and confirmed the succession of his son David II. So frequently was the abbey used for parliament during the 14th century that one of the connected buildings on this site became known as Parliament Hall. Patrick Penneter became the abbot of Cambuskenneth in 1513. He is the most notable individual to hold the title, as he also held the position of secretary to James V and also fought at the Battle of Flodden in the same year. The abbey fell into disuse during the Scottish Reformation. In 1560, the abbey was placed under the jurisdiction of military governor of Stirling Castle, John Ericsson, who had much of the stonework removed and used in construction projects in Castle. The abbey continued to have close link to the heir of Robert the Bruce, Robert II, granted charter at the abbey in 1380, and accounts show that he stayed at the site for a number of days, while his son Robert III conducted royal business at the abbey in 1395. In 1486, Margaret of Denmark died at Stirling Castle and was buried at the abbey. In 1488, her husband James III was killed at the Battle of Satcheburn, and his body was brought to Cambuskenneth Abbey for burial. His tomb was finished in 1502 and painted by David Pratt. Following the dismantling of the bulk of the abbey, the tomb was damaged and it was restored in 1865, funded by Queen Victoria. It stands within a railed enclosure at the east end of the abbey ruins. The abbey was acquired by the Crown in 1908 and it is managed by Historic Scotland. Abbey is open to visitors during the summer months, and foundation of the abbey church and other artillery buildings are visible on the site, much of which date from around the 13th century. On the 13th century, campanile is intact following an extensive renovation in 1859. There is also a historic graveyard on the site, including the grave of James III of Scotland and his wife Margaret of Denmark, as well as many of abbots of Cambuskenneth. Exploring the world and sharing these exciting adventures with you is a passion of mine. Be a part of my passion by hitting the like button and share this video as much as possible. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any future adventures. Take only memories, leave only footprints. See you next week with the new adventures. Ciao.